Daren Dower, and I live at Marrickville.
I'm interviewing Daren in relation to the issues of crime and the issues of drug and alcohol. Previously incarcerated yourself?
Yeah, most of my life, from like 10 years on till recently.
How did you wind up being incarcerated?
Using drugs, stealing, growing up in Redfern on the streets and all that sort of stuff.
Did you have to fight to get released?
Yeah, you had to get parole and all the rest of it. And pretty much started with nothing, so.
And what was it like inside?
Not the best. Seeing people get murdered, drugs, fights, people getting picked on, being locked up. It's worse than what people think.
Did you often see like a lot of innocent Aboriginal people getting locked up inside?
Yeah, like it's people, you see people who shouldn't be locked up. They're not locked up because they're criminal, they're just locked up because
they're black.
Yeah, and their circumstances, like where they grew up and how they grew up and all the rest of it.
Australia still have one of the highest rates of Aboriginal incarceration rates. Would you concur that's still the case today?
Yeah, there's a lot more Aboriginal people in jail than when you look at the population compared to like non-Aboriginal. There's got to be a reason why.
Yeah, well,
It's as simple as.
Yeah. I would concur it to be very much a racist system. During sentencing, do they usually take into account social and cultural needs?
Not really. It's more based on like what crime you committed. They'll do pre-sentence reports and everything else, but that sort of stuff, it's more about the law than anything else.
In terms of access to family, friends, etc., do they allow you to do that, or do they make it incredibly difficult for you to see?
You get visitors, but if you're from Sydney and you're sent to a jail at Goulburn, or you're sent to a jail at Bathurst or Grafton or wherever, a lot of people, they haven't got cars, or they've got family. It's hard to get there. And then you have book visits and all the rest of it.
Historically, we've seen there's been a history of invasion in Australia. Would you say that the high rates of incarceration and the high rates of Aboriginal death in custody has historical links with the invasion that happened in 1788?
Yeah, it's just the way the system is. It's always been the same system. Like they try and change it, but the system's the same.
When you're inside, do they take into consideration like any religious needs that people have, or political affiliations people might have, or anything like that?
They never used to, but now because it's probably politically correct, they say they do, but it's just like window dressing. You know what I mean? Like they have NAIDOC week and all that, but if it was up to them, they wouldn't have it. They do it because the right thing to do.
In terms of like celebrating like birthdays or Easter or Christmas, do they let you celebrate that, or?
Some days I'll have salvos come in and hand out a few presents, and apart from that, it's just like every day's the same. Easter the same, Christmas the same, no difference between any other day.
The conditions, the cell would probably, like, it wouldn't even be as big as my kitchen, which is pretty small.
No, it'd be like half that. You know what I mean? Like, they're not that big.
Yeah.
And some of them, like, especially in Goulburn and that, they're that old, they haven't even got glass in the windows. You know what I mean? It's a big steel bar going across a big hole in the brick, and it gets like -8 degrees or something. And they've got a little bar heater up in the corner, but
there's no heat coming out of that.
No, you have to be sitting on it to even get anywhere near it.
How would you say the connections between between what happened to yourself and what you've witnessed happen to others, would you say that the system has gotten worse? Has it gotten worse inside or better inside? Or
It's probably gotten worse because now everyone's isolated and they've tried to like separate everyone into their nationalities and that. Like in the yard, you got like Aboriginal people in that yard, and you got Arabs and Levs in that yard, and the white people, and then you got the Islanders. And
wow.
they try and that's in the maximum security and that. They try and keep everyone separate.
And would you say that segregation has continued to create a culture of prejudice?
Yeah, because you got that group there and you got that group there, and when you look out, you see that group. When they look back, they see that group, instead of just everyone being mixed up. The reality is, it's a jail. People are going to fight.
Yeah.
So just separating everyone like that is not going to stop it.
No.
It just makes it worse. Do it like that way because it's easier for them.
Yeah.
To keep everyone under control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then they say, oh, well, it's for your own safety and stuff like that.
Yeah. But define safety.
So you don't get bashed by that group, you know what I mean? Or the Aboriginals don't get bashed by that group, or the whites don't get bashed by that group. So that's how they try and say it, but keep everyone separate so everyone's safe.
Would you agree that's not really an effective?
No, because most of the people know each other anyway. A lot of most people in jail grew up together, you know, and were on the streets together. And white people have got black people as friends, and Arabs have got black people as friends, and
yeah.
you know what I mean? Problems sort themselves out, but they just make it worse by not wanting people to mix.
Would you relate to the rest of Jesus, how Jesus did time in jail, and then got crucified on the cross?
Yeah, because you got no control. So I know what he must have went through because it wasn't his choice. It's like when you get locked up, you got no control. You get locked up and you get told what to do. If they want, they can take me at the back and shoot me. I can't do nothing about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I know exactly what you're saying. And once you're locked up, you're locked up. They got all the power over you and do what they want.
When you got released, what kind of support were you offered?
None.
There was nothing.
Just parole, and then you go to parole and they say, come and see us every week for the first couple of months, then it goes every fortnight, and every now and then they might do a urine test or something. But as for them helping me get a place to live and all that sort of stuff, none of that. I had to do all that myself. They give you like half a dollar check and they tell you to go to Centrelink, and then you go to Centrelink and they say, yeah, well, your next payment will be in a fortnight, and that's it. You get the next full check. And if you've got nowhere to live,
how are you supposed to pay rent?
that's what I'm saying. It's not, even if you get a full check, it's still not enough. But you only get half a check. So if you got nowhere to live on that family, that's why you get out and start stealing again. Not because people want to, but they think, I got half a check, I got nowhere to sleep, I got nothing to eat.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, go out and steal something.
Did you manage to get in touch with your family first, or did the housing support come first?
I was lucky because when I got out, I got my sister and that, and then they helped me out this time, and then my mum. Because all the other times they didn't. But because they gave me somewhere to stay, then I was able to go to housing and do all the stuff and get forms filled out, and my niece and that helped me fill them out on the internet and all the rest of it. So if I didn't have my family, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be probably locked up again. My brother-in-law got out about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, and I took him up to Redfern to Aboriginal Medical Centre to make appointments for psychologists and all the rest of it, and then took him to RPA as well, and then housing, and then housing filled out all the forms and that, and then checked a couple of weeks later, and it come back and says you haven't been approved for housing because you didn't put in a certificate of Aboriginality. And you got 3 weeks to do it. So he's gone back to Redfern, and they said, listen, our next meeting's not for a month, you have to wait a month and come in and then we'll get everything done. So he just said, oh, well, no, legal aid.
Got legal
But the
aid.
point is he done all the housing things and then they accepted it online, and because he hadn't heard nothing in like 5 or 6 weeks, my niece checked it and it said not approved. And once you asked why, it was because he didn't send in the paperwork to prove he was Aboriginal. Even though,
And so because they denied his Aboriginality.
yeah, they said, listen, you got 3 weeks to send us the paperwork and then we'll put this application through. If you don't, you're going to have to start it all again and blah, 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 blah. And then when he went to get it, the way they do it now, because a lot of people try and fraud it,
Yeah.
you got to get someone to vouch for you.
An Aboriginal person, they have to essentially like prove that they're an Aboriginal person,
Yeah,
even if they've got black skin,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah, they've got to go to the actual corporation and say, oh, here I am. Then they have a meeting, and then you got to get someone to vouch for you to say, yeah, like that you grew up in that community and you know them and this and that. So it's like, back in the day, it was easy like that, but a lot of people that weren't were rotting it. So it's a way of protecting themselves. But it makes it difficult when the people still making the decisions have grown up with you and they know you and they know who you are, but they can't just write the Dean's office, right, from Redfern, because he runs all the Redfern housing and that, and he used to do them. And he stopped doing them because it was too much hassle. You know what I mean? Because of all the bureaucracy. So like I said, when they gave him the 3 weeks to get it done, he just said, well, I can't even get the certificate for at least 4 or 5 weeks. He just threw his arms up and went back and started having a drink and then stole the car and locked back up.
And what about yourself? Were you able to, how did you manage to get into your housing commission?
When I got out, I went and seen my sister and that got me an appointment with a psychologist and that. And then I seen the psychologist and then they helped me with forms, and then my niece helped me fill the forms out and I put the forms in and waited. And because I was on the list a long time ago and I'd never come off the list, it made it a bit easier. And that's how I got my place. Because it turned out, when I was younger, I filled out for housing. But you can't get a job anyway. You know,
No.
It doesn't matter, you can't get a job. When you go and say, I've got a criminal record, I've never had a job in my life. So what experience have I got? None. You go for a job, you've got to have experience. Now, they don't want you to have criminal records. You know, well, what have you been doing all your life? How come you've never had a job? They're the questions they ask.
Are you aware there is a legislation in place that if you've been crime-free for 10 years, they can actually wipe
No, I didn't know that.
your records? It's called the Suspended Sentence Program.
Yeah, because
Program. I was just wondering, do they let...
I don't even know, that's what I'm saying. Until you just mentioned it, I don't know about that. The only, what I do now is a group called NEMI. They're based at Ashfield.
Yep.
Like the mental health and all the rest of it. And they come and see me once a month. And if I need anything or if I want to do anything or they help me do volunteer work or whatever, or even just go for a walk in the park with them. Yeah, maybe 5 years I've been, and the only reason I've been out is because I got a flat, somewhere to live in that. I'm not on the street, I don't use drugs or nothing no more. So if I didn't get me flat and all the other stuff, I'd probably be locked up, like I said. So it's been an achievement to be out 5 years, but don't think because I've been out 5 years that
You can't go backwards.
I can't go straight back. You know what I mean? Like 5 years, it doesn't matter if it's 5 years or 5 days. It doesn't take much to send you back. Now,
Yep.
was how much time I wasted. I was sick of being locked up all the time. I've had enough of it. You know what I mean? So, I don't want to be locked up no more, and it doesn't matter what I do or don't do. I'm just sick of being locked up. That and probably like my mum and that as well. Making sure that I'm out. Because all the times I've been locked up, growing up and everything, least, you know, or before she dies, at least, you know, I'll straighten my life out, sort of thing.
Yep.
But she's getting old now.
So would you say being able to maintain the connection with your Aboriginal family and your Aboriginal community has helped keep you out of jail?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like with my mum and all the rest of it, and then proving to them that I can stay out of trouble and that they know, and my niece and that, like, my niece played for the All Blacks grand final today.
Wow.
But
Did
they
you win?
lost.
Yeah. Wow.
They got beat by 4 points, so they had to go play at Brookvale. So like, my other brother-in-law was there, and my sisters were there, and my nephews, and so that's just the family thing and that.
That keeps you going.
Yeah. Because before, when I get out, I was just using drugs, I wouldn't even be around them, I'd just be gone. But now they don't, you know, and now they ring me up and ask me for help or anything. Because like now I got my licence, and then today they couldn't drive there because my niece wanted to go on the team bus, and because my sister's suspended from driving, so I got the phone call to say could I drive.
Thinking of the future, if somebody turned around and said to you, I'll wipe your record and I'm willing to offer you a job to follow whatever you wanted to do in life, what would that be?
Probably a mechanic. Yeah, I know you've seen me working on the cars and that.
Yes.
Yeah. So working the sister's car, my other sister's car, my nephew's car, and the neighbours' cars. Yeah, the neighbour downstairs, he had an argument with his other neighbour, and then the police charged him and bar refused him. He's been locked up for nearly a year, so I've been looking after his flat and his dog. And then he got a letter last week saying he's lost his flat because apparently his sister didn't notify him like she was supposed to. And Howser went out to the jail and spoke to him and more or less, I think, just verbaled him to sign the papers to say that if you give your flat up, we'll put you on priority when you get out.
That's crazy.
So now I'm packing up all this stuff, now I've got to look after the dog till he gets out. So it's only 3 months, so I don't know why they just didn't wait. Because that's what I said to him, if they come and say anything, just say, like, get out in 3 months, can you just wait? If I don't get out in 3 months, fair enough. I'll sign the papers, do what you want. But at least let me, because now he's going to get out.
And where is he going to live?
He's got no flat, and they're going to put him on priority, you know what I mean? So it doesn't make sense. Why don't they just say, well then, it's only 3 months, we'll just hang on to the flat until November to see what happens. That's the simplest way. And
would you agree at the time it was a home invasion that happened?
Yeah.
And where essentially where the dog basically bit the intruder, and the owner got charged?
Yeah, he come in the house, the dog bit him, but he got charged, and because of his record and all the rest of it, and because the other one rang the coppers and he becomes the victim. Because he rang the police first and said this is what happened, so they take him as the victim.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So if me and you have something happen and I ring up first, I'm more or less the victim. If you ring up first,
then I'm the victim.
Because you rang up first and recorded it. So that's pretty much how they can say what they want, but that's how it works.
From my experience, like generally speaking, most people that live in housing commissions don't necessarily have mental health issues, but rather it's more of a case people come from poor and oppressed backgrounds who need somewhere to live.
Yeah,
but would you say that there's often a common prejudice against people who live in housing commission, and so would you say that as a result of that prejudice, the police tend to target housing commission areas compared to non-housing commission areas?
Yeah, especially as soon as they hear Cahill Place, they automatically assume just straight away it's the house.
Is that the first case you've come across where housing have basically forced the person to voluntarily give up their flat?
Paying $5 a week rent, right? Because he told me he was locked up, blah blah blah. But they said to him, pay the $5 a week rent, for 3 months, and after 3 months it'll get reviewed, but everything will be alright. Then after 3 months, I got a letter in the mail saying your rent's going back to full rent, blah blah blah. So someone's left. So I went and told his sister, and his sister told me that she rang up Howzo and spoke to one of the social workers or one of the client officers, and the client officer said, "Don't worry about it, everything's been sorted out. There's no problem." And then that was in May.
And that was in May.
Yeah, and then last week he rang me up saying, "I just got a letter from Howzo saying I owe $1,000 rent from May, and I've been evicted." So I rang up his sister and started yelling at her saying, she said, "No, I swear I spoke to the Sheila, this and that." So what they've done, they must have done that on purpose, because they've gone out to the jail and seen him and said to him, "You're $1,000 behind in rent, you haven't paid it since May, you're going to be evicted. If you take it to the tribunal, you'll probably lose, and you won't be on any housing list or nothing, and you're just going to lose your flat. But if you voluntarily give up your flat, right, as soon as you're released, we'll put you on priority." When you lease for 5 years, you know what I mean? So I had a 5-year lease signed like 6 months ago. Apart from that, there's been no other problems. I always paid his rent on time and everything. And then the whole reason for this Howzo going out there, they weren't to say, "Listen, everything's alright, keep paying you $5 a week." They've gone out there with a plan to get him to sign the papers to voluntarily give it up. I went to him and say, "Listen, what are you going to do, because you've got another week and a half to do something. So don't leave it to the last minute. If you're going to do it, ring up Howzo and say you've changed papers, I want to go to the tribunal," whatever. So I'll see what he says.
In my church, we would certainly support him in his fight to stay here. Stay here because, from what I've seen, it seemed like this is a gross injustice. Would you be able to ask him?
I've got a visit booked for, I think it's Wednesday, so I've got to go out and visit him on Wednesday, and I'll just see what he says and where his head's at. For the last 10 months, like talking to him and saying this, and so that's how he's kept the flat, because I've been looking after the flat and the dog, and got all this way, and then at the last minute they do this. Well, then just do it at the start instead of waiting all this time. So then 3 months he goes to court. No, he should walk out of court.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because, like I said, that's why the whole reason for being on remand, because you're innocent until proven guilty. That's why you're not treated as a sentenced prisoner. So you've still got the same rights as everyone else. You're just locked up.
Yeah. What I've often seen is that there's been an inequality in bail sentencing, where they will tend to lock Aboriginal people up on bail. Meanwhile, a non-Indigenous person who is alleged to have committed the same crime, will get bail. Have you often seen that happen?
Yeah, it happens all the time. If you've got private solicitors and enough money, you get bail. But if you haven't, then you don't get bail. Simple as that. You're not going to be charged for the same thing, but because of where I grew up and all the rest of it, no bail. Then if you got money, you get bail.
Are you in touch with the custody notification service?
Yeah, he's done all that sort of stuff. So
The custody notification service is a 24-hour hotline that he can call, and it's set up for Aboriginal people that are in custody.
Yeah, it's like when you first go into custody and they do all the paperwork and all the rest, and they're supposed to do checks on you and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
That happens as a result of the Stop Deaths in Custody campaign, because the majority of, at that time, there were many deaths in custody that were happening actually inside the jail. Now, many of the cases, like in the case of TJ Hickey are happening at the point of arrest, basically, or just before the arrest.
Welfare workers now, you can't just walk up and see them. If you're locked up, if you want to go see the welfare, you've got to go to the office and you've got to make an appointment. It might be a week before the appointment comes up. 1 for the jail or 2 for the whole jail. And if you want to go see welfare, if you're going to make an urgent phone call, you've got to go make an appointment.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Oh, I've got to see the welfare, yeah, well, make an appointment. See drug and alcohol, make an appointment. You know what I mean? If you've got something that's emergency that's going to be done on the spot, bad luck.
Right.
You know? Or if I ring the jail because something's happened and I've got and it's an emergency, then they'll leave the note with the welfare. The welfare is not in that day, you might get it till the next day.
Wow.
And like 2 days later you might find out, oh sorry, your mother died. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what I mean, like people think, oh you just walk in and see your welfare, no problems, this and that. You got clinic times, you know what I mean? You go to the clinic, you got times to go to the clinic, then if you go to the clinic, you want to see the doctor, you got to make an appointment. If you want to see the dentist, you got to ring up the dental hospital on the jail phone and bang, bang, bang and make an appointment. Then if you've got a toothache, the dentist might be due for another month, depending what jail you're at, especially if you're in regional jails, or depending how many people ring up, you know what I mean? And maybe once a month.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. The local doctor from the town, if it's a regional area, probably comes into the jail once a week, twice a week, depending on the jail and all the rest of it. During the day, it's a lot more, there's a few more nurses around. But if it's at night in your cell or late at night, whatever, and it's medical emergency, there's only like one nurse on duty. So they have to ring, there'd be no doctor or nothing there. They just have a nurse on duty, and then they'd have to like ring the doctor or ring an ambulance and all the rest of it.
The limited support workers that they send in, whether it be medical or whether it be welfare case workers, would you say that there's a high level of prejudice amongst those workers?
Majority of them, you know what I mean? Especially like, they're cynical. If you go over and say I'm sick, and they'll say, oh, no, you take some Panadol, there's nothing wrong with you.
Wow.
Half the time they think you're just lying.
Wow.
Like you go over and say, oh, I've got a headache or I've got something wrong with me. Like, they automatically don't believe you.
Wow.
So, because they think, oh, everyone's just got to go and rot for something. Maybe like 3/4 dead before
you get medical attention.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's how it is.
Crazy. Great. Do you think that Royal Commission changed very much?
No, because it happened when we were kids. You know what I mean? Like me and my brother-in-law and all that, when we were at Daren Boys home and that, the same shit used to happen to us. It still happens now, and nothing's changed in the slightest.
Where to next for yourself and for others? Like, what do you anticipate the next step to be?
And for me, it's staying out of trouble, and I don't know, I haven't really thought that far, because it's just I've just been doing day by day sort of thing. So the main thing for me now is taking care of my neighbours' things and just doing what I've been doing with my family and helping my brother-in-law go and visit him in jail again. So the way I see it, the people running the system at the top, they've never been down the bottom, they don't experience it, so they don't know about it. So they're running it from people telling them, but they don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about politics, but
No.
that's what I'm saying. So, but I know about what's happening on the street. So if I went into politics and people said to me, this is happening, I'd say, oh, bullshit, because I know. But they haven't got a clue because the way they're brought up, where they've been brought up from and that. So the system at the top's got to change where that they're all not naive, but they just need people in there that, like real life people, that know what's going on. That's it. Not people going to private schools and like isolated and sheltered, then they go and get a job in Parliament.
No.
Think they know everything and they know fuck all.
Yeah, exactly. And would you say that Aboriginal people have the capacity and the power to change?
Yeah, well,
change the way things.
They're saying they're human beings just like everyone else.
Yeah.
They're not dumber than anyone else. So,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're a human being, you can do what you want.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I do apologise if I have brought up any issues
it's all right.
that upset you.
No, it's fine.
But thank you very much for sharing your story.
You're right. I told you I'd do it, you know what I mean? Like, it's being said, that's it. It's real life experience, none of it's made up.